hurt can hold us back. So think of someone, time in your life, not you per se, but if you want to go there, Chris, you can certainly do that too. But like, think of a time in your life where maybe it could have been when you were a child, could have been young adulthood, could be now as an adult, right? Working professional, where you did open yourself up to receive and you were hurt by it. Someone burned you, lack of trust. So what can happen is hurt can hold us back and then compound on it over the years. So all of a sudden, someone comes and wants to give you something. It can be very difficult and challenging to receive and receive very deeply. So we have this barrier up that it kind of bounces off of.
Rob, welcome back to the show. How are you, my friend?
Oh my goodness. This has been just knowing you, Chris, and knowing that I'm going to be back on your podcast, a total thrill and joy, doing well, some personal challenges, which we'll certainly touch on later, but so happy to be back on with you.
Love it, man. You always, I'm like, you're always bringing energy, but I'm like, how do you sustain that? Is it always this high, or is there also the equally low lows? I don't know.
Well, you'd have to ask a great question. You'd have to ask my wife and kids. I think that they would say, I think that is on the go from like 5:30 in the morning to about 9 at night, and then I crash. But
good.
Believe it or not, Chris, believe it or not, as much as I love people, I like to consider myself an extrovert of extroverts, and I'm energized by people. I'm energized by purpose-driven things, ideas, businesses, etc. What I'm most energized by in this season is time alone in reflection. And some would say, well, Rob, hold on. I thought you're energized because that's what extroverts do. They're energized by people and all these things you just mentioned and more. And I'm like, yes, but I've learned to appreciate the silence, the contemplation, because I find that in that there's a still small voice that begins to rise up, not focused on what I shouldn't be doing and all the ways that I'm doing things, or I could be doing things differently, but speaking to who I am, who I'm designed to be, and where I'm heading. And talking about in a place like that, coming out of that, energized like never before.
Dude, we have so much in common. Like, if you ask my wife, like, and what I do, she will say, I have like a cabin at the end of the garden, which is like an office / gym / kind of safe space. And that's what I do. I go there to just be alone, quiet, reflect. And my idea is it's the way I re-energize, and I come out of that re-energized. And people don't get it. They're like, what do you, that's my favorite thing, is actually just having quiet and just silence and space to really think and reflect, which is hard in this day and age where you're always on, whether it's your Slack or your Teams or your email or your LinkedIn messages. It's just too much as well. So I love that. Well, firstly, congratulations on the new book. I know it's just today or yesterday. It
was yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe it. It was 3 years in the making, total passion project. This was my 4th book. Chris, it's the launch just snuck up on me. Yeah. Because you know how it is, like any creative idea, from the inception, from the genesis of it all to its completion, it can be a while. There's a lot of grinding. There's a lot of things you have to do. So all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, launch day is getting real quick, just a couple of days before. And it came about yesterday, and it was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. So the book is called Lessons from Abdul, The Hidden Power of Receiving from Anyone, Anytime. First, tell us a bit about the name as well. There's a lot behind that, I know.
Yeah. Abdul was a childhood mentor. Some would say a very unconventional mentor. We had very little in common on surface. And what I mean by that, Chris, I met him on the basketball court, and he was coaching. He was in the gym. I was getting ready to play my basketball game. So I was right outside the main doors of the main gym. I was about 10 years old. And, like most kids getting ready for their game to be played, they're waiting for the one before them to end. So I'm like peeking in, like who's playing? And I hear this loud booming voice, a voice I'd never heard before. I was like, whoa, this person has my attention. Well, it turned out when the game concluded in my game, I came into the gym with all the other kids getting ready to play. I was like, where's the source of this loud voice? And I look around, couldn't find it. And finally, he was still yelling even after the game. And I look around, I see the source. And the source was this middle-aged man who was African-American, who wore old kind of grungy clothes. And I was like, I don't have a whole lot in common with this guy, but certainly he loves by his screaming and yelling and his passion behind the game of basketball. And I love basketball as well. Anyway, long story short, I inquired about him through other people in the gym that day and subsequent days to find out more about him. And if we already didn't have a lot in common outside of the game of basketball, you know, I was 10, he was around 40, he's African-American, I'm white. He was part of the working class, I'm middle to upper class. He's Muslim, I'm Christian. And, but something intrigued me about him. Not only did he look different than I was, but I don't know, I was drawn to him because of his love for the game that I loved and adored and still do to the day, and that's basketball. And that sparked a relationship where I played for him for a number of years. And that is Abdul. His name is Abdul. And the lessons in the book, Lessons from Abdul, are 10 transformative life and leadership lessons that I learned from him. But Chris, let me just be real with you for a second. Like, this man, although so different than I was, he had so much to give, but yet didn't even realize it at the time as a 10-year-old. I need to position and posture myself to learn from someone who was radically different than I was. Thus, the hidden power of receiving from anyone at any time.
Wow. Why now? Because you see, this is a story from when you were childhood. Did this resurface recently, or in the recent years, where you were like, did something happen that made you reflect on that and thought these are some lessons that I would love to transfer on?
Interesting question. You know, as anyone has in their life milestones, significant life milestones. You know, for example, like a birth of your first child, or a big career milestone. You started your first business, you get that job promotion, whatever it was. So no different in my life. And I think now at age 48, although Chris, I'm sure you would agree, I look maybe like 30,
you're looking
30,
good, man.
38.
I listened. I was a bit shocked when you just said that. Looking good, man. Whatever you're doing, it's working.
No, I'm totally having fun, but no, thank you for your encouragement. We got to hang out a little longer. All right. But like any life milestones, I think as you continue to live life and the challenges and the blessings of life, and it goes back to our earlier part of the conversation where we both love to reflect and take time to soak things in. You know, I just find myself, maybe because I'm knocking on the door at age 50, that I'm finding myself, those times of reflection are getting richer. They're becoming deeper. And one of the things that is coming out of those times are honoring those that have gone before me. Honoring those mentors, those leaders, those managers, those family members, those influencers in my life that have made such a rich deposit. Abdul has been one of those unique, intimate, and powerful people in my life. And so for me, it's a way to giving back to him and his family to say thank you.
Oh, wow. It's a real token of gratitude.
Sure is. Yeah, because I think, you know, in the rat race of life, as we move forward, you and I know, you just alluded to this a few minutes ago, how fast life can move and just trying to even keep up with it. And I know I haven't done a good enough job, and I don't think the average person, dare I say, leader's done a good enough job with truly, truly honoring and respecting those that have gone before us. You know, I once heard it put like this, you probably heard it put like this as well as all the listeners, that those that have paved the way, their ceiling becomes our floor.
I love that.
And so, yes, we can walk into certain advancements in leadership and life, based on the work that others that have gone before us have done. But then I also now step into this with an ease, but also even a greater responsibility to take it even further. And so I really wanted to be a really good steward of what's been entrusted in my care and the people behind that as well.
No, I love it. Before we get into the lessons, could you discuss sort of the interplay between giving and receiving? Because you was very intentional about, you know, obviously the power of receiving.
Yeah. So I'm going to use an illustration, and perhaps you've heard of this before. Those listening have heard this before too, but I think it's very timely and very applicable, Chris. And a man that was in a great flood, And the flood, I mean, it was coming in full force upon the earth. And he cries out to God, his creator, and says, "Would you please save me? Save me." And shortly after that prayer, that conversation with God, a person on a canoe comes before, goes right by him. Now, at this point, he's on his second, third story, and the flood's coming in. And the person in the canoe said, "Hop aboard, hop aboard." And he denies the man. He goes, "No, no, 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 I'm cool, I'm cool. Everything's going to be all right. God's got me." Shortly after that, a boat with team members, multiple team members on there to rescue him. "Come on, man. The flood's coming. You don't have much longer. You got to hop aboard. Your time's now." "No, no, no, no. I prayed. God's got me. He'll save me. Everything's going to be cool." Then shortly after that, third and final, helicopter comes. You can imagine the wind picking up with the propellers and everything like that. "Come on, man, this is your last chance. This is it. You're going to die. You got to hop aboard." And he waved him off and said, "No, no, I'll be good. I'll be good." Tragically, the man drowns. He dies. He meets God in heaven. And he says to God, "Why didn't you save me?" And God said, "I tried to 3 times. Through your neighbors, through your friends, through your family. I tried 3 times and you denied, you denied, you denied." See, Chris, the point in all this, many leaders exhaust themselves in selfless service. And it's notable, it's admirable, it's praiseworthy, right? But if everyone in the world, all the leaders and all the people were giving, who would be left to truly receive? If everyone were given. So for me, not only that story, but really lessons from Abdul, the hidden power of receiving from anyone from any time, has everything to do with a needed balance brought to the both giving and receiving. It's a genuine exchange of true humanity that needs to be brought back. So I clearly highlight in the book the need to receive. And I'm not talking about taking. Okay, we all know there's takers.
Yeah, what's the difference between that?
Yeah, I view kind of taking as like out to manipulate people's circumstances for your greater gain. Ultimately. See, receiving in the most genuine and authentic aspects of who we are, there's a purity with it. There's a simplicity about it.
There's the vulnerability.
There's a major vulnerability.
Right.
Well said.
You mentioned leaders, right? They don't want to ask because they don't want to be vulnerable.
They don't, because I think that many leaders are afraid of, if they let even a compliment or a praise soak in too long, they might get a bigger head than what they might already have. Or perhaps they deflect certain things because they're afraid of what comes with that. And I can even allude to that and unpack that in a little bit. But I find too, Chris, that receiving in the most authentic, vulnerable sense, it lands in 3 different buckets, okay? Receiving praise or compliments, receiving help or support, or receiving unique perspectives or even opinions. And I think many people, many leaders are threatened by a deep receiving because of what comes with it.
Is that sometimes just an assumption though, or does always something come with it?
No, I think in most cases something does come with it, but there's barriers that hold us back in knowing what to do, what comes with it.
Okay.
But a lot of the barriers aren't on the exterior; they're not on the outside. They're more the barriers within.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, like that's why I said the vulnerability part, because there's times
right.
where I haven't wanted to receive something because in order to receive it, I have to be vulnerable.
You do,
right?
I'll even put it like this, right? If one's constantly giving, guess who's in control of that process?
The person giving.
The person giving. When we receive, and we learn how to posture our hearts to genuinely receive and receive in vulnerable ways, we don't feel nearly as in control.
That's true. So there's a sense of,
and the average person leader, we love to be in control.
Yeah,
though.
That's so interesting. So lack of control is one. My next question was going to ask you is, what are the challenges of leaders when it comes to authentic receiving: lack of control.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. That's one. I list out 7 in the book, so
Okay.
I don't mind.
What's some of the other ones? Yeah. What are some of the other ones?
Yeah, hurt can hold us back.
Mm.
So think of someone, time in your life, not you per se, but if you want to go there, Chris, you can certainly do that too. But like, think of a time in your life where maybe it could have been when you were a child, could have been young adulthood, could be now as an adult, right? Working professional, where you did open yourself up to receive and you were hurt by it.
Yeah.
Someone burns you, lack of trust. So what can happen is hurt can hold us back and then compound on it over the years. So all of a sudden, someone comes and wants to give you something. It could be very difficult and challenging to receive and receive very deeply. So we have this barrier up that it kind of bounces off of. And we listen, we know all the right phrases to use when someone comes to give. Hey, thanks, but, or you know what, I don't really need help right now, but you know what, I'll come to you if I really need help down the line. You see? So we all have these words and phrases that have become default mechanisms. So we don't have to go down the road of that genuine and authentic receiving. So we already talked about letting go of control. Hurt can hold us back. How about this? The paradox, as I like to call it, the paradox of closeness. Do you have a team member that you're pretty close with? A partner, a spouse, a friend, a neighbor? But you've almost become too familiar with them and they become too familiar with you? Mm-hmm. I have found that the closest people to us on planet Earth can be the most difficult to receive from.
Oh yeah, because I love this because it's harder because you care about that person and respect them, so it makes it even more difficult.
It does.
Sometimes.
And
also if they think less of you or if it's negative, then you feel even more hurt, right? Because that's the person you care about the most.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my! I should have co-written this book with you, Chris.
No,
hey, but I also add on to it too. Yes and amen to everything you said as it relates to the paradox of closeness. However, really close people to us, don't we also know their quirks, their idiosyncrasies, the things that drive us up the wall? So all of a sudden, let's say you're in a point of tension in that relationship and there comes a need that you have to receive from them. And if there's tension in that relationship based on what you already know, a little bit of backdrop, a little bit of background, maybe they pushed your buttons in certain ways, is it that easy to receive from them, especially in a heightened season of tension?
Yeah,
probably
hard.
not.
Mm. Yeah, I try and you kind of made me reflect on Shane and I's relationship because we grew up as childhood friends and we're still working together. And people was like, "How do you separate your friendship and your business relationship as co-founders?" And I never thought about this until this conversation, that it is massively down to our ability to receive from each other.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't really think about that because we can put ego to one side. Mm-hmm. We know each other so deeply that whatever he's saying, I know it's coming from a good place.
That's right.
Even if I disagree and I feel hurt by it, I know that he would only have said it if he really wanted to help me or the business, etc. Does that make sense? So I never really thought about it through receiving.
There you go. Yeah.
from that perspective. That's why it works.
Yeah. And I'll maybe say one more very quickly. And again, there's more obviously in the book where I lay out 7 in greater detail. But the other one has to do more with receiving unique perspectives and opinions. Now, you and I don't have to look far and wide to know in politics, whether it's US, abroad, UK, it doesn't matter, right? Politics, entertainment, sports, to dig our heels in deep when we believe something, like core convictions of the heart, which are good to have, okay? It could be a business owner, it can be a leader of a team that has a vision and the plan has to be a certain way. And anyone else that has a different set of opinions relating to that vision or the strategy of that or the implementation, they can easily become a threat unless we're careful about it, okay? I call this, now this is interesting, I call it the path of least resistance as an obstacle, okay? So the average person and even leader, that we love to hang with people that validate our own opinions and thoughts. I think it's a normal part of human nature, right? Man, they think the way I think. I read books that are in alignment with what I believe and listen to podcasts. Oh, it's just great, isn't it? But the moment someone opposes your viewpoint and kind of rattles some feathers of yours based on a unique angle, a thought provoking comment, maybe a story that they share that just like, that's not my experience. And let me tell you why, that all of a sudden a lot's with that. And not only do we have to learn how to get along, we need to learn to appreciate unique perspectives. See, Abdul and I came from two different kind of worlds, two different cultures, two different ways of life. But one of the beautiful things about Abdul, even with unique opinions and thoughts, is he built a culture that was fun. He really built a culture that was fun, Chris. And what that did was it diffused any tension that was there with different thoughts and opinions pertaining to the game of basketball, pertaining to stories of life, to pertaining on where we came from and the impact that had on our lives. And one of the very practical things that he did that I still love to today, he gave us all nicknames. And these were nicknames that were playful and fun, that kind of fit who we are. I'm sure you're probably on the edge of your seat right now, Chris, along with everyone else being like, Rob, what nickname did he give you, man?
Exactly. What was it?
So he called me Greyhound after the dog, Greyhound. I'm like, all right. Now I've grown to be 6'4", 6'4 and a half. I'm long like a I'm thin, I'm long, but I'm fast, I'm quick. And he knew on the basketball court, not only did I look the part of a Greyhound, but he knew that I could make quick decisions, that I was a leader at heart, that on that basketball court, he saw me as a captain, as a leader, that in game time decisions on the basketball court, when a decision needed to be made and everyone was looking, what are we going to do? He knew that Rob could make like real-time decisions in a very short period of time. But see, it was his way of building a culture with all these differences, because let me just tell you, made up on this team, I already mentioned our unique differences. I mean, even different ethnicities. There was Asian and there was Hispanic, there's white, there was African American, all different walks of life that reflected both him and I in our relationship as well. But one of the practical things that he did, he made things fun and built up a culture to where we could all relate, share in life, share in stories. And basketball gave us that amazing opportunity to do so.
I was thinking, firstly, cool nickname. But I was like, well, how do we translate that into the workplace? Because obviously we can't start giving people nicknames. It might not go down well in the workplace. So how have you translated that into some practical things that we could do in the workplace or as leaders?
Yeah, and this comes out to one of the lessons that Abdul taught me to help overcome some of those barriers that we're not receiving well. Is let's be committed to have more meals together. There's something real powerful. And listen, there's story upon story, statistical data research that backs up. Like when we share not just professional stories with each other, but personal stories, that's when we can actually set ourselves up for greater success in the both giving and receiving and sharing some stories. And I think we best do that over meals, Chris. Now, maybe I just love eating. I don't know what it is about me. I love food.
You're right.
Okay? I'm a foodie, but we would have times our family invite Abdul over to our house. And I think even in the professional realm and world, we can go down to the cafeteria. We could take each other out to a local place to eat, right? And I'm all for those things for sure. Anything that's going to promote both the giving and receiving exchange that I'm talking about and the sharing of stories and even personal stories. But how about inviting someone to your house? Oh, you had to go there, Rob. I know so many leaders are already doing that, but all of a sudden you open yourself up in a completely different way. Now, again, I understand some of the geographical differences and stuff like that, right? So we can kind of take this into the virtual world and have fun with it a little bit. And what's that mean? Or having a virtual cup of coffee and stuff. But I'm even saying geographically for a moment, what does it look like, or what would it look like opening up your house and inviting people to come in from the workplace more so than you ever have before? There's a certain vulnerability when people step foot in your home, how you organize your house, the food that you make, the warm welcome you provide. And we did that with Abdul. And Abdul did that with us, did that with me. And over a meal, invited into each other's home, over a course of 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, you can't help but better get to know the stories of what make up people and who they truly are. And so I think that's one of the things that Abdul really stressed to me and so many others he came across, the power and the importance of getting together over a meal and sharing story.
Yeah, I love that, man. One of the things I used to do in the workplace is once a month, everyone, we had a very multicultural team, and once a month we'd do a team meal where it would be in the office, but everyone would bring food that represents their cultural heritage. So we had Indian food, Chinese food,
Great idea.
English food, kind of, and we'd all feast together,
Yeah.
and it would be like, oh, my auntie made this, you know, and these are the lamb samosas that AJ would bring in. I still remember it, you know, right now, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, I would do that quite a lot when especially when we had new people joining the team, because it was a great way to bring them into the team and kind of have those conversations. Shane and I often invite the team to barbecues, stuff like that. And literally next week, Friday, we're going out as a team for a meal on a Friday night, just to go have a good meal together and have some fun. So I definitely agree. Those things are, obviously we're doing less and less of that now because of hybrid work.
Sure.
But, you know, where you can, or, you know, even if it's once or twice a year, is really important to build those relationships beyond the workplace.
It sure is. Mm-hmm. I applaud you. I applaud you and your team for doing that, because I find that so many teams so many leaders want to lead their team in that way, but the demand and the grind and the responsibilities, the projects at hand, they can easily get consumed in that. So all of a sudden, maybe their intention was to do something like that once a month, or even once a year for that matter. All of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, I haven't done it for a couple of years, or I haven't done it for a few months. And it's like,
that was me, by the way. That was me. Yeah. So I literally spoke to my EA and I was like, Lisa, why we haven't been out? We used to do it monthly. Yeah. And then last like maybe 3 or 4 months, we haven't done anything. And it just hit me. Yeah, I was like, it was only because we had a few new hires starting. I was like, why have we not been out together? And it was like, well, we've just been so busy. And I was like, no, we can't afford not to do that, because because of those relationships that are formed during those times that people will go above and beyond for each other and truly be there for each other, because they've built those relationships. So you can't afford not to do those things.
Yeah. And I always,
go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, you know, the temptation I think that each and all of us fall under is in intense seasons and times. And I appreciate your vulnerability, Chris. I'll put 2 hands up with me on that too, because there's times that I do a better job than others in this. So, but the temptation is that when times are more intense, is I'll get around to doing the things that were most meaningful when I get to breathe a little easier. When in actuality, we need to do more of that thing, not less,
100%.
During the intense times, because that's what's going to help not just only get us through, but the relationships are going to be sustainable during, coming out of, and then certainly in the long term because of it, where trust is built and fostered in a very short period of time. And so I think it's like everything else that's good, right? Begins with the level of awareness, whether we've done it before, or we haven't done it, or we want to increase it a little bit more to where there's some level of accountability we have within those team dynamics to see those things through. And I never learned this best, Chris, that I don't know if you knew this, I've been over to Afghanistan a number of times. And I would take teams, you know, I teach at public and private universities in Afghanistan, my inside out leadership philosophy, and also help the game of basketball develop over there as well. Go figure with me. I have to get basketball in as well. But one of the things I learned from my friends in Afghanistan very quickly, my first trip was back in 2007, and then took 3 other subsequent trips since then, was hospitality. You know, there's certainly a lot the West can learn from the East, and a lot the East can learn from the West. One of the things I certainly learned was what a gift my friends were and continue to be in the area of hospitality in the East. And when they do a meal with you, you know, in the West, you know, I'll speak specifically in the US, like a lunch break is an hour. That's all you get with your people. And you get like that hour. Well, in the East, man, they'll extend that to a half day sometimes. And they'll literally over lunch, put work completely aside, move everything away, and maybe an hour or two quickly turns into 3, 4, 5 hours of just kind of reclining at the table with each other and truly sharing stories and getting to know each other, because they know in the very fabric of their being, because they view so much in life holistically, where we in the West, this isn't all bad. We can put things in file folders, categorical in nature, very black and white that way, compartmentalize. But in the East, they think of things holistically. So by default, in that holistic kind of a heart and mind, they're thinking, yeah, I'll put work aside because I know work will get done when trust is built and fostered, and it'll get done in an efficient, effective manner that we never have otherwise. So, I've been greatly encouraged by not just the discipline of hospitality, but to slowly but surely live a lifestyle of it. And it can change business cultures, it can change family dynamics, neighborhoods, communities, etc. So it's pretty cool.
What are some, firstly, I love that. And I think sometimes we've over-engineered and systemized it, that we removed some of the humanity of it, right? Really random story, but like I actually had one of my team members spend Christmas with us one time. Awesome. And all of the other leaders and even my own CEO in the previous company was like, why are you doing that? Like they saw it as a really strange thing. I was like, well, he doesn't have any family here in the UK. He's going to be alone during Christmas. Yeah. So he can come spend Christmas with us. Right. And I'd never had someone who's more, hardworking and loyal. I didn't do it for that.
Exactly.
I didn't, just to be clear, I didn't do it for that. I did it because it was the right thing to do. I felt like it was the right thing to do. And my mum was like, hey, that's cool. Great to have someone else over as well. But whereas I remember being looked at by other managers and the CEO in the company like I was crazy.
How can you do that?
Yeah, they were like, I was like, why is that strange? So I just wanted to throw that out there. What are some practical things that we can do to be better at receiving?
So I think number one, it's be aware of one or more of the things that could be holding you back. We discussed just a few minutes ago. Yes. What are some of your barriers? What's your primary barrier holding you back, right? Because we know, anything with great power, comes with that awareness piece. So we have to be aware of that or those areas for sure. Second, be mindful of the phrases, the words of the phrases that we use, you use, I use, that become default mechanisms when people come to you and say, hey, do you need help? Or, hey, I have an idea I want to share with you. Or, hey, you did a great job on this specific project. I just want to let you know. What do we say by default that holds us back from receiving? So we got to know, number one, what does hold us back, those barriers. And secondly, the phrases and the words that we use that deflect from genuinely and authentically receiving. So just list them out. I always encourage people, just list them out. Like, okay, someone comes to you and they just want to compliment you.
I was thinking that earlier, by the way. I've got a couple of friends that are really bad at receiving compliments. I was thinking that, and they always say the same things. You're right. So what are those words? What are those phrases? Just jot them down so we become more aware of them. So we become aware of the barriers. We become more aware of the phrases. Now, how about even in a time of reflection? Chris, we're coming full circle. You go to a certain place that you reflect. I go to a certain place or places that I reflect. So I'm assuming that those listening also have their place or places that they go. If not, please go to those places on a regular basis. You're going to be so much better for it in your heart and soul. Assuming that you have a place or places you go. Think back of a time, or times plural, where you didn't receive well. And this isn't a time of condemnation or guilt-ridden stuff and like you gotta, no, but I think it's okay to feel. Maybe even a little regret. Like, you know what? This person said this, I deflected it. I didn't let it soak in. I didn't appreciate it fully. So in a sense, by doing so, they wanted to bless me. And I put a hand up to their blessing. And feeling that sometimes isn't bad at all. It's actually a part of just who we are in reflection, so we can be better coming out of it. So we don't have to miss those moments nearly as much in the future. So again, become aware of what's holding you back.
Second, what are the words or phrases we use by default? Third, acknowledge specific moments when you may have fallen short in receiving. Fourth, how about this? How about the next time someone says something to you again, or wants to give you something, falling in those three buckets we mentioned before, pause 3 seconds before you respond. I just let us have 3 seconds there. What those 3 seconds will do, it'll at least give the opportunity and the invitation for you to receive a little differently, a little deeper than you ever have before. Okay. Yeah. And then lastly, number 5, within 24 hours after that interaction, spend a time in deep reflection about it. What did you do well in that receiving? What didn't you do so well? And I really encourage people when they go down that road of those 5 practical things, my goodness, Chris, slowly but surely you're going to set yourself up for being a much better receiver, because here's what happens. We can only give what we have received. So if we want to be a more selfless giver, guess what? Posture yourself to be a better receiver. And you're going to be able to give more selflessly and more greatly and more powerfully in and out of that place for sure. And that's what Abdul showed me. He was a man of genuine selfless service because he knew, regardless of where he was in life, there was always a deeper well within himself of receiving. So he could always give what he had received.
Dude, I love that, man. And I'm assuming like any of these things, repetition of doing those things you just mentioned, because you're going to start to catch yourself, right? Saying those things and catch yourself in the moment and be like, nope. Hold on. Take your 3 seconds, Chris. Receive this, process it. Then, because sometimes we can jump to conclusions, right? Knee-jerk reaction to it. And our knee-jerk reaction is normally to defense mechanism. Put the hand up immediately, right? So if we take those 3 seconds to process what we've just received, then we're going to be a lot better at being able to.
Well, Chris, respond. It's like you and your breakdancing, all right?
Oh, you're bringing up the old school days, all right.
You know, I had to bring this back up. I think on the episodes I came on, we did talk about your breakdance and my breakdance, and so I had to share a little bit of this with you. But it's almost like breakdancing, okay? Now, you stay with it a little bit more than I do. I used to be a breakdancer back in the day. I can't say that anymore. But you and I know whether it's breakdancing, it's singing, it's a musical instrument, it's a sport that you play. If you want to be proficient, if you want to be elite at anything, if you want to be better, more effective, more efficient, whatever the case may be, it's all about repetition.
Yeah, man. I use basketball as my analogy for that. Like, I spent an entire summer teaching myself how to play basketball, and I was there for 6-7 weeks. Every single day from the moment the sun came up, I was just shooting. And by the end of the summer, I couldn't miss a shot. And I went to the tryouts and I got in the team, and I used that all the time. And I was like, everyone's like, oh, you're really good at basketball. I was like, no, I'm not really good. I just done thousands and thousands of reps. Right. Same with dancing, same with skateboarding, same with business, same with sales. I made thousands, tens of thousands probably in the last 15 years phone calls. And you're really good at no, I was willing to do more reps than other people. That's all it is. You hear about Kobe Bryant, right? He used to come out before everyone else, like a couple hours, right? Before the warm up.
Absolutely.
To just shoot shots before the warm up. This is, just to go, even when they get to that elite level, it's even more important. That they do that as well. Listen, before I let you go, because I can talk to you forever, parting piece of advice for everyone, and where can they grab a copy of the book and reach out to you if they want to work with you as well?
I appreciate that. Could I share, and I'll keep this tight, Chris, a personal story that I think will really, in closing, and then I'll let everyone know maybe where they can go and get the book and stuff. So all these lessons that Abdul shared with me, that I share with you during this conversation, and that are all in the book, have never prepared me more than what I'm currently going through on the personal front. And I want to be really open and honest with you, Chris, and everyone listening. My wife, just about 6 months ago, was diagnosed with a very aggressive and treatable form of breast cancer. When the diagnosis came, there was a lot of uncertainty with how aggressive this cancer truly was, probably about a month of uncertainty. But when we did get some level of certainty, little did we know that would be the most challenging season of our entire lives. We've been married, it'll be 20 years in May, 3 kids, 15, 13, and 8. And my wife went through, after she was diagnosed, a very aggressive, intense 4-month chemo plan. She finally rang the bell. For those that don't know, ring the bell is when at the conclusion of your chemotherapy, whether it's a few sessions or a few months of sessions, it's a celebration, your last day, your final treatment day, of all that you endured, your courageous spirit, all that have gone before you with cancer, that have gone through something similar, some that have died prematurely. And also, kind of as you ring that bell in celebration, it's like your heart remains with those that continue to go through it all at the same time. Mm-hmm. My wife concluded that day with just a major applause of all the nurses that were in that building taking care of her for so many months, along with myself and my mother-in-law. She then takes a month off, and she just completed 2 weeks ago major surgery. It's a 6-week recovery. But Chris, what I really wanted to end on was one of these exchanges with my wife that I think really ties a bow on everything you and I have been talking about. And it speaks to one thing: when we learn how to receive and receive really well, and in and out of that place, we learn to give to other people, this genuine exchange of both giving and receiving, what can happen. It was the second chemo treatment with my wife, and we were in the thick of things. She was in a lot of pain. I was by her side in the treatment center. There were no words spoken at this particular time with my wife. We just look into each other's eyes, hold hands without one word, and we both begin to cry together. And the tears pick up from the depth of our heart, and just more and more tears just streaming down our face. This genuine, authentic connection for almost 20 years, really 22 years since we knew each other. And little did I know in that moment, albeit silent, that there were words spoken to us from heart to heart. And here's what those words were that we later found out. That everything that we've been through in life had gotten us to this place. That we had learned to receive Abdul's lessons and the lessons from so many other people that have helped transform our life, that we had postured ourselves to receive and receive and receive. But it was only to prepare us to receive even more deeply than ever before in this season, because we couldn't do a whole lot. We were helpless. We were certainly anchored in our faith. We knew we had a wonderful support system of friends, families, doctors, church family, etc. But we needed to learn the power of receiving like never before. And let me just tell you, it's come true. The road to recovery is far from over for us, but my wife and our family are on the road to recovery, in large part because we've learned the hidden power of receiving from anyone at any time. And because we have received deeply, we know there'll be a time, a season that's coming where we get through this and we will be able to even give more selflessly to a greater degree with those that have given to us richly. So I wanted to share that with you and everyone listening, because we're in the thick of things right now, but we're living a life filled with hope and encouragement based on where we've been and where we're going. So I wanted to share that with you.
Wow, man. Well, firstly, thank you for sharing that. It was so powerful.
Yeah.
And you lived it, right? You went through it together. And it's hard, especially in those times, to be vulnerable, like we discussed earlier, right? Where you kind of feel helpless, but it's even more important to receive from your friends, family, the hospital, etc. And wow, yeah. Well, obviously, wish your wife a speedy recovery as well.
So much.
And I feel like sometimes you go through those things, and that some powerful moments happen that come out of it. And this book and the work you're talking about is one of those, right? You didn't expect to do this.
No,
You didn't plan to do that, right? but
No.
it perfectly encapsulated everything we've been talking about. So I'm glad you took the time to share it. I appreciate it.
No, you're so welcome. I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you so much. You'd asked earlier, like maybe a couple websites or
Yeah,
where
man.
people
Like,
can
where can
find
people
me.
reach you? Because you work with so many great teams, and for all the HR leaders that are listening right now, Rob does an incredible work, both virtually and in person. I've seen both, as well, with leaders and teams. So where can they grab a copy of the book, and where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I think a good centralized place to connect with me is to find out more about me too. It's just my personal website, which is robbholman.com. I love LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So feel free to send me a message with a question, a comment, connect with me on there as well. As far as the book's concerned, Lessons from Abdul, Amazon's the best place right now. It's going to be distributed in distributors all over the globe in a very short period of time. But Amazon right now is the best way. So just Lessons from Abdul. It's available on paperback, hardback, and also ebook or Kindle version that way. And at lessonsfromabdul.com for further information as well, Chris. So thanks so much.
Amazing, man. I know it's always going to be a great conversation when we connect and have you on the show, and it's super excited to get this into everyone's hand. As always, everyone, wherever you're listening or watching right now, there'll be a link in the description, all of those links that we just mentioned. Apart from that, man, I wish you all the best, and I look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah, looking forward to breakdancing with you sooner than later for sure.
No, maybe we should just stick to basketball. We're getting too old for.
Isn't it funny? I use a breakdancing illustration. You use a basketball illustration. We're meeting in the middle here. This is wonderful.
Perfect way to wrap up, man. Thanks so much.
You bet. Thank you. We'll see you.